Now it's back to school for pupils in the Free State, Gauteng, Northwest and Limpopo and Mpumalanga today. Those are the inland provinces, of course. But over 1,000 pupils are yet to find a spot in Gauteng. Our parents say they've been trying to get their children into the preferred schools since last year's placement period. To discuss the psychological impact of all of this, I'm joined by Gerald Williamson, a clinical psychologist, researcher and development specialist. Gerald, thank you for joining us at ENCA. And I think the crucial question at this stage, we heard the numbers from the MEC of Education mentioning some 1,394 learners that are yet to be placed. It was day one, of course, for the inland schools today. I can only imagine what impact it has on those learners that stayed at home while many of their peers started their grade 8s or grade 1s. Maybe tell us how this had an impact on them.
Good evening to your listeners and good evening to your viewer. Yes, I think what is very important to note that, the impact would obviously differ depending on age, but at the same time also in those communities that place a high value on school attendance, often a child who is either delayed in placement or not placed at all experiences a number of psychological and other mental health impacts. And it could be also that the child feels left out, the child feels that they can't identify with peers, especially if they're part of a friendship circle and during contact hours, they're not available to socialize. And often a child who is delayed in attendance might also find that when they do join school, that there's a significant impact on the 3 hours depending on the length of wait. And amongst these, the reading, writing, and arithmetic can be severely impacted. And of course, it depends also on the classroom that they attend, the nature of the teacher and helping them catch up, the type of parent and the parental support unit. And so, yes, it is significant for many, many children, and we've seen delayed trauma in so many children.
And I was myself personally crisscrossing the breadth and width of Ekurhuleni, where I spoke to a lot of parents that were in the queues of either the district Department of Education or the schools themselves, panicking, trying to get their children in. They spoke of the pain that their children are suffering, but you could also see the impact on the parents themselves. What do the parents then tell their learners during these times?
I think, there's also there's a very thoughtful part that is often not factored for in the formula of this delayed attendance, is that parents themselves go through a lot of trauma with the uncertainty whether the children will get in or not, whether the children will attend school or not. And often this type of trauma spills over into the home environment. For example, the parents might typically be stressed out, have sleepless nights, find to be moody, angry. The parent finds themselves unable to focus and concentrate if they are in the workspace, etc. And of course, the young ones will absorb a lot of this feeling from the parent. And so there's a whole disruptive effect in the home environment. So for the parents themselves, it becomes very hard for them to try and find the words to explain to the children why they are not in schools. Because officialdom can often be very brutal, it can be cold and sometimes non-explanatory. And sadly, our government is not very known for being very empathetic to the plight of parents and children. And so, yes, I think parents are often left in the cold and they often feel a sense of alienation because they can't always explain to their children why they're unable to find a space for them. Yes,
I want your expert opinion and analysis on the online application system itself. Government, including the Minister of Basic Education, are defending it, saying that it's working efficiently, while the parents on the ground are, of course, frustrated, saying that it must be scrapped out. It is unique to Gauteng, especially for grade 1 and grade 8 admissions, compared to the other provinces that are still doing those relative walk-ins to the various schools. Is it working, in your expert opinion?
I'm unable to comment on the Gauteng specific online application system per se, but anecdotally and what has come our way in being in the educational field is that many parents find it very difficult to traverse technology. And there is it seems to me there's very other little support processes throughout the year to even prepare parents for that eventual log-on experience. Personally, I would have asked the education authorities to look throughout the year if they can offer videos, tutorials, little seminars, media campaigns, etc., for how parents can exactly go about this. And of course, my biggest my understanding of the biggest frustration that some parents have is that the system, according to anecdotal report, doesn't always behave as it should. And for the ordinary South African who's not tech savvy, this might compound their woes. So I think it's something the authorities have to look in way before the date and embark on a very concerted campaign to help educate communities across the country for that matter.
And in being fair to government, there are those complaints from the Education Department itself about the parents who apply late, given that a lot of their children are coming from various other provinces, shifting then to Gauteng, given the influx that normally comes to Gauteng. How do we deal then with that specific issue?
I think that's a very real problem in this country, you know, the procrastination effect and waiting till the last, for many reasons, of course, too many to unpack here. But, you know, if I can lend my shoulder to the wheel and ask our government authorities in education to have an all year around campaign to reaching out communities consistently and to keep on drumming on the same aspect and through community organizations, for example, through churches, etc. So not to just to wait towards the end of that event or where you're announcing when the portal will be open and so forth. So sadly, our communities need that. They need us to be in their face consistently, and maybe for me that's a year-long event as opposed to close to the end event.
My parting question to you is more, seeking advice for those parents and learners, especially in Gauteng, of course, as they face the frustrations, especially during this time. What do you say to them? What do they need to do during these testing times?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. I think, you know, as a psychologist, I can say to people, many of us do understand the frustration, the trauma, the mental health impact on both you and your child. And I think I'm rather appealing to officialdom, firstly, to be able to provide more leniency and more support during these times for parents. Open up better communication channels to allay people's fears. But for the parents themselves is to say, look, in my understanding of education in South Africa, even though your child may join school in a delayed fashion, yes, there may be some form of delayed effect, but your child can catch up. It is possible. And of course, just work within communities so that eventually your child will get into the school. But don't give up. Don't walk away and just don't keep your child out of school. That would be a negative thing to do. But there is hope.
Gerald Williamson, thank you very much for your time.